Now this is a house without a basement, and usually a house without a basement you will find the main cutoff to the house, the water cutoff, in the utility room, usually right next to the furnace or hot water heater, as you see here coming up through the floor. And before we start our job, we're going to go back and cut that off, just in case this valve here is not holding really good. The one here at the top, which is the cutoff to the hot water heater. And now here's the cutoff, the gas cutoff to the hot water heater. Now we have the relief tube on top and the flue pipe. And now we're going to connect the water hose to the hot water heater. We can drain the hot water to the tank. Right here, we're going to cut the water off to the entire house. This will make it a lot easier to work with it, because you can't see it right now, but the bathroom is right next to it, so when we turn the faucets on in the bathroom, it'll help us drain all the water lines, so that when we go to solder, we won't have any water causing any steam to create any leaks while we're soldering pipes. And one way to help the water drain out the hot water heater fast is to usually just go and open up the relief valve and let air in, and the tank will drain a lot faster this way. This particular relief valve you have to hold in place, so what we're going to do is we're going to screw this valve off, and then we'll let the air in that way. Okay, so now we're removing the relief valve, and as I said, once we do this, the air will get into the tank, and the tank will drain much faster. A little closer view of the relief valve. And now let's cut the gas to the hot water heater off. And here we're going to disconnect the gas lines. And by the way, this flexible gas line tubing is it's not code in just about any city or municipality that I know of. So we're going to make this, when we repipe it, it's going to be all black iron pipe, hard, rigid pipe, which will be a lot safer. Okay, we've disconnected everything, and now we hot water heater removed, and now we can kind of get to all the stuff that was behind it. In most cases, when you do have a hot water heater that's in the utility room, usually it's pretty much of a tight squeeze, and this is an older home. And what we're doing here is we're going to start with the gas lines. And what I like to do in a situation like this is we have to run some of the gas lines in the back and extend it out through the front while the hot water heater is not in place, which makes it easiest for us to get to it right now. And once we run the gas lines and get them set up to where we need them, then we'll put the hot water heater back in place and start making all of our other connections. And of course, what we're doing here is putting the pipe dope on the pipe, and this is Teflon pipe dope. Okay, now we have our gas line in place, set up to connect the water heater once we put it in place. And before we put the water heater in place, we've got a few more adjustments to make. Right here, we're going to take the hot water heater cutoff, and we're going to sweat that short piece of copper you see sticking out of there. We're going to pull it out of there, so we have to heat it up first. And once we get it out, we're going to clean it up, and we're going to start making our preparations for the connection of the water heater. Right here, we're taking our 3/4 inch wire brush, cleaning the inside of the cutoff valve, and now we're taking a little flux to flux it up, and here's the hot water heater. We've got it back in place. Relief valve, we're going to come back later and put a relief tube on there. Then we're going to connect the water line, the flue pipe, and the gas line. And right now we're going to start running the rest of the gas line to the water heater. So what we're going to do is prep the water heater up with the gas line nipples, the drip leg, and the union and cutoff, and we're going to put it on, and then we're going to kind of wiggle it in place and connect it to the other end of the gas pipe that's coming from around the back. First thing we usually do is we put the 1/2 inch black iron pipe T and a nipple, and we screw it into place. Turn this T, we're going to turn it to a certain point to where it's still sticking out, and we have room to start to put our drip leg on here, and then we'll make the final turn with the drip leg in place. This makes it a lot easier to work with. Purpose for the drip leg is to catch any condensation or any trash that might be in the gas line. What it would do is the flow of the gas coming through the pipes, any condensation will be heavier than the gas, or any trash will be heavier, and it'll bypass going into the control valve and go straight down into the drip leg, and keeping the control valve free of any moisture or any trash that might be in the pipe. Connecting the black iron pipe union. This is going to allow us to connect the pipe coming from the back and this pipe here without breaking it down. And then all we have to do is break the union apart, and then once we do that and connect the pipes, then we can put the union back and have both connections connected. You notice how the fitting in the back round is kind of facing up. That's because I'm giving myself an opportunity to make a last turn on it rather than try to overturn the pipe or back up on the pipe. We don't want to back up on any gas fitting. We don't want to turn it backwards. We want to just keep going clockwise. Okay, here we have the dielectric unions to the hot water heater. And the purpose for the dielectric unions is so that the copper pipe doesn't touch the iron tank. The two should never touch. One metal would cause the other one to corrode faster than the other. Electrolysis would travel through the pipes, so we have to isolate it. And here on top you see the hot side and the cold side. We have to make sure that we make that right so that we don't cross the water lines in the house. If you ever noticed, your hot is always on your left side and your cold is always on the right. Any faucet that you turn on, it should be hot on the left and cold on the right. And also we want to make sure that we pipe dope the dielectric unions. And these particular unions here are male 3/4 inch dielectric unions. Depending on the water heater that you get, if you get one that already has the nipple sticking out the top of it, you want to get a 3/4 inch female dielectric unit. Just taking a few measurements here. And in this particular situation, I like to try to fit it all together and just keep it together. And as you'll see, once we're done with this, I'll take the nut to the dielectric unit and the insulator and push it back up on the pipe so that it will give me a chance to solder the brass fitting to the copper without burning the plastic insulator. Right now we've just about got the union prepped up and the pipe prepped, and you see how we have the plastic insulator pushed up to the top to keep it away from the heat, so that we don't melt it. And as always, when soldering copper pipe and brass fittings, keep the heat on the fitting itself. The solder will draw to the heat, so wherever you're keeping the flames, the solder will flow to it. So this will suck the solder right up into the fitting, as long as you keep the flames on the fitting itself. And now here we're doing a vertical swept. Make sure that when you wipe the solder, that you wipe it up into the fitting, not away, but back up into the fitting. And you don't have to constantly keep the heat on the fitting, because you don't want to overheat it. Just get it hot enough to where the solder starts to melt and suck up in there. Then you get a nice seal. Okay. Now we have a 3/4 by half reducer, because the hot water heater leaving the tank is 1/2 inch, and in most homes today everything is 3/4. This is an older home. And now that it's cooled down, we can take the insulator and put it back over the brass piece. And let's put our nut back over there. And we could just kind of screw it down for now. And once we've done that, we can go ahead and solder the piece of pipe going into the cutoff valve. And right now we just don't want it too tight, just hand tight enough right now, so that we can come back later and make any adjustments that we may need to make. Now let's solder the cutoff going to the hot water tank. And if you notice, as we're soldering, that the flames are never pointing directly to the middle of the valve. So what we want to try to do is direct the flame away from the middle of the valve, so that we don't melt any washers or anything that's in the valve. And usually with a valve, you want to use as little flames as possible, not keep it on those too long. Just as we're doing here, we're constantly moving it. And now we're doing the same thing we've done on the other side to this side. This is the hot water side. And you see that we don't have a cutoff valve on here, because it's not needed. You just need one cutoff going to the hot water heater to cut the hot water to the tank off. I know in homes I've seen people that have had two, and it's not necessary and it's not a code. One is sufficient. we're cutting the main water cutoff to the house back on. Already you can hear the tank starting to fill. Now let's put our relief tube on, and the relief tube should be 6 inches off the floor to prevent the water from splashing in case it pops off. And if it splashes, it could burn someone, and if it's too high, of course, it could burn someone also. So usually 6 inches is about the safest distance to have it off the floor. Connect the flue pipe back. If you go out and buy the right water heater, usually in most cases it'll match right back up with the old one that was there before. And here we're going to screw the sheet metal screws back in. The gas line is all connected now. We're just about ready to light the water heater now. Let's turn the gas valve on. And right here, when we hold that down, that releases the gas to the pilot and give us the opportunity to light it. And once lit, we're going to continue to hold this down for about a minute or so until the thermal coupling has heated up enough to generate a small amount of electricity, which holds the pilot light open. Okay, we have the pilot light lit. And now we go to the control valves and turn the handle to the on position. And then you can't see it now, but we're getting ready to turn the temperature up, which will ignite the burners. And after the hot water heater gets to a certain temperature, this will cut off. And today we have a different type of hot water heater. This is what you're going to see in the future. This is it. The new water heaters that are coming out, you don't have access to the bottom anymore. So now the way that we go to light this is a electronic ignition, an electronic switch that you click with your finger. Here, I'm going to show you this here. You see the orange wire going up and the red tall cylinder button at the top, and we just click, and we have the ignition, which you can see through this window here. And just like the other water heater, we're going to hold the control valve down to open the gas line to the pilot light. Now let's hit that switch a few times and you'll see the ignition in here. You'll see the spark going across. There you go. And that spark is going to ignite the pilot. Now it still operates on the same principle as the old one, as far as holding down the control button, allowing the pilot to burn for a while to heat up the thermocoupling. And once that's heat up enough, we can release the button and then turn the control valves on. And now the main burner is ignited.